is Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat, and we're back once again with our weekly preview. As ever, I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, who we're the weekly preview kings these days. It only seems to be the two of us. But yes, Elliott Grigg. Elliott, how are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you, Paul. Delighted to be here. Delighted to go through another week. Some good fights on the card this week. Quite a busy week, isn't it? Delighted to share it with you as usual, and to take a bit of a deeper dive, I suppose, into some of these fights.
Yeah, as you said there, it's a bit of a stacked weekend of boxing really coming up. Obviously, we've got boxing in stateside in Vegas. We've got some in Sheffield, York Hall as well on Friday night, as well as Natasha Jonas headlining another British show. So yeah, I think this week there's boxing quite a lot on the Friday and the Saturday. So as I mentioned there, obviously we do have that Sky show, the Sky Boxer show, headlined by Natasha Jonas. Obviously, Tyler Denny, Bradley Ray on the undercard. Dalton Smith against Casey Benjamin. Brilliant card, but I think for the sake of our preview, there might have been a couple that have gone under the radar, and ones that perhaps people have missed out on this week. So yeah, I think the three fights we're going to look to today in detail are the world title fight in the middleweight division for the WBO belt between Britain's Denzel Bentley, who's taken on Zanabec Alumakanli. That's a brilliant fight. Obviously, a big fight. Then you've got Sonny Edwards. Everyone loves Sonny, the brash, outspoken Sonny Edwards. He's fighting Felix Alvarado on Friday night at the Sheffield Arena in a flyweight contest for his IBF title. And then also on Friday the 11th, you've got Nick Ball headlining against Rafael Pedroza, which is probably the under the radar fight of the week in my opinion, because did a bit of a dive into that one, and it seems like a pretty good fight. So yeah, they're the three that we're going to look into. And without further ado, Elliott, I will hand it back to you for the first one.
Thank you very much, Paul. So yes, as Paul said, I've got the responsibility really of introducing the WBO world middleweight fight that takes place in Vegas over the weekend. Paul did a noble job there, actually, of pronouncing both of his names, which I said off air that I would replicate. But having said that, I'm actually now going to pussy out entirely and just call him Zanabec for the purpose of this preview. So Kazakhstani fighter, 29 years of age. I'll just give you sort of tail of the tape, as it were. 5'11 and a half, 71.5-inch reach, 12-0 record with 8 KOs. Decent amateur career as well. I suppose 50 amateur victories, 10 losses. There's some good footage doing the round on boxing Twitter at the moment of him slapping around Anthony Fowler. If you're lost for some entertainment or some arousal material, that's out there for you. Now Zanabec, obviously we known, I suppose opponents that he's fought really that of renown or known to fight fans would obviously be Hassan Dam, for Callum Smith, and that's correct, Callum Smith. Martin Murray as well, and then last time out he fought Danny Diggum, and that was also in Vegas, second round KO, which was obviously an impressive performance. Danny, not a bad fighter, obviously, had a decent draw against Sorokin, but yeah, completely outperformed obviously by Zanabec there. Denzel Bentley, 27 years old, 5'11", comes into this with a 17-1 record, 17-1 to be perfectly fair, with 14 KOs. Fights, I suppose, that notable fights that stand out will probably be the close split decision British fight he had against Linus Rodofia. Had a loss against Felix Cash, which is not necessarily anything to be criticised. That was for the British belt, which he won in defeating Mark Heffron after initially having a draw there. So looking at it, you've got Denzel Bentley, really is probably the third. I think he's ranked third British middleweight, third in the British middleweight rankings, coming in to a world title fight against a tough and durable Kazakhstani. Now, the phrase, do you know what? We'll go back and forth and we'll give some predictions in a second, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there's a term really that goes around boxing Twitter circles, which I think is going to apply actually in this fight, and that is, I think Denzel Bentley could be baptized come Saturday night. Quite frankly, I think this is going to be a serious evening for him. And I'm gonna, without saying how it's gonna end, actually, because I feel like I should retain some mystery. I'm gonna go to you firstly, Paul, and say, how do you see this fight? essentially. How do you see it going? And then, were you to predict one fighter was going to prevail with confidence? The losing fight. I want to get your idea really of how they could win, how you see them potentially winning, if at all. And I'll come over to you now for that insight, please.
Yeah, thanks, Aya. That was an outstanding breakdown. So yeah, no, I mean it's a good fight. It's a big fight. It's a big opportunity for Denzel Bentley. You know, especially after when he did lose to Felix Cash, and it was pretty emphatic knockout. You thought it could have been a long road back for him, but you know he's dusted himself off, picked himself up, won the British title again, and now he's got himself, you know, seemingly a world title shot before Felix Cash. So yeah, it's just funny how it works in so boxing works sometimes. Uh, my prediction: Zanabec's going to win by knockout. It's just a matter of when for me. I don't know whether we're giving Bentley enough credit, but I think he's kind of got a bit of a suspect chin if you look at the Cash fight. Then again, you know, Felix Cash hasn't stepped up to world level yet, so he could be a world level fighter in the making, and we don't know yet. Bentley could have got caught cold because it was only in the third round against Cash. But you know, if you're looking at Zanabec's record, you know, 66% knockout rate against quality fighters. Really, he's been fighting good opponents since his debut. Really, I think you have to favour Zanabec KO within the first half of the fight for me as well. To be perfectly honest, I don't know what price that would be with bookmakers, but I would say Zanabec in the first 5 or 6 rounds for me, definitely. If you look at him, yeah, you mentioned obviously the Dignam KO, Hassan and Dam. He's KO'd his last 6 opponents, all of which have had winning records, which isn't really heard of a lot when you considering you're only 12-0. So he's fought everyone with a winning record since his 7th fight. So yeah, hats off to him. I don't see him getting beat here, Zanabec. So yeah, I mean, let's be honest. His professional debut was against a man with 33 wins. So you know, you've got a special talent on your hands here, and I just see him being far too much for Bentley. To answer your second question, be short and sweet. How can I see Bentley winning, if at all? To be perfectly frank, I really hope he does pull it off, but I can't see any single way that he wins this fight.
No, I'm actually going to say that I agree with you, Paul. Though I think early half of the fight, Zanabec. I'm just going to follow up before I bounce back to you actually on the rest of the fights that we're going to discuss. I've because I know it's been pointed out to other viewers will be aware of this, and it's been pointed out to me even again this morning that Paul, you're a huge Munguia fan. And I'm just looking around, obviously that division. You look obviously at the guys that are down there that have belts, even Charlo, Golovkin, whatever. But if I'm just looking actually at the rankings, WBO rankings, you've got Munguia's in there, Eubank Junior's in there, Felix Cash is in there. Do you give out of those 3 guys? Do you give any of those guys a chance of beating Zanabec? And if so, which of those 3 do you think would stand the best chance?
Ooh, so who were the 3? Eubank, Munguia,
and Cash.
Oh, do I give any of them a chance? I don't know. Difficult to see. I think we'll find out more this weekend. But you know, if what I expect Zanabec to do happens, I can't really see I can't see Felix Cash beating him. I can't see Eubank beating him either. And Munguia, no, I'd beat him. So no, I can't see it at all.
No, thank you, Paul. Yeah, so thank you. So, yeah, obviously that was our one half. I'm going to pass back to Paul now, who's going to take us through, as he mentioned, there's a couple of other fights that we're going to talk about, one in Sheffield and the other one as well. So, Paul, over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. I think we'll go to Sheffield first. We'll go to Yorkshire, and Sonny Edwards is defending his IBF flyweight title against Felix Alvarado on Friday night. Quick tale of the tape here of both men. Obviously, with being flyweights, there's not a huge KO ratio. So for Sonny Edwards, he's 18-0 with just the 4 stoppages. Alvarado's 38-2 with just 3 stoppages. Alvarado's 33 years old. Edwards is 7 years younger at 26. Both orthodox. Sonny Edwards 5'3", Alvarado's 5'4". This is the 4th defense for Sonny Edwards of his IBF title, and then looking at Alvarado, he's of Nicaraguan descent, and he's only had of his 2 losses on his record. They were both for world titles back in 2013 and 2014, back to back. So yeah, he's undefeated in 8 years. He's a former IBF light flyweight champion. Had 2 defenses before then moving up, and he is unbeaten since 2014. Everyone's obviously calling for the likes of Sonny Edwards against, Julio Cesar Martinez, Roman Gonzalez, Jesse Rodriguez. There are some huge names down at flyweight for big fights for Sonny Edwards, but he has to get through this first. So yeah, now that I've given a quick breakdown of the fight, Elliot, my question to you is this, is Alvarado a live opponent for Sonny Edwards here? Or is this another Sonny Edwards unanimous decision winning 120 to 108 shutout? And my follow-up question to that would be, depending on your answer, do you give Sonny Edwards, do you think he's the best in the division, the whole world, or do you put him behind the likes of Rodriguez or Gonzalez?
That's a great question. I think I'm going to say first and foremost, do I think Alvarado's live opponent? I think Alvarado's a good opponent. I think, like you said, like looking at his record, his age, he's 33, not lost. Obviously, he's only lost to world champion that's undefeated since 2014. You saying there? So I think in a weird way, it's almost like we're disappointed with this opponent for Sonny Edwards, just because obviously there's a lot of talk about the Martinez fight for so long. So compared to that, I think it's a bit disappointing. But I actually do think it's a good credible fight and a live opponent. I mean, looking at I know Sonny's obviously the IBF champion, who in their rankings do tend to give opportunities to fighters which aren't necessarily as high up in the rankings as other in a sort of ring established criteria and established names. However, I do think this is a good opponent. I would obviously like to see him fight Martinez. I'd obviously like to see him even fight someone like Arroyo in that division. To be perfectly honest, I feel like he needs, for the talent that he has, I feel like he needs those big names. I feel like he's ready for those big names, and I think in the mix against those sort of fighters, he's every bit as credible and every bit as showcase what he's got. When it comes to Sonny versus Chocolatito, is one of the guys you said, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, Paul, you're breaking me because I'm a big fan of Chocolatito here, and it's feel like, to be honest with you, I'm not sure, for all Sonny's boxing ability, I'm not actually sure he comes through that, frankly. I mean, we saw what happens when Martinez fought him. And obviously, I know there's different levels in sort of boxing ability, but I just feel like Sonny Edwards, like we say, he doesn't have the power, doesn't have the knockout power to necessarily hold someone like that. And I still feel like boxing talent wise, Chocolatito could outbox him as well. So I feel like I'd say, to be honest with you, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this like 70-30. I'm saying it's a very, very close fight, and frankly, depending on where it is, I could possibly see it going either way. But those are the sort of names I would like to see Sonny in with, frankly, rather than sort of, even though this Alvarado's got a great record and like you say, he's probably deserving of a title shot. I feel like for Sonny, we need to finally see him get the kid gloves off to a degree now and get into these massive fights, really.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think whether it be at flyweight or whether he does step up, obviously down in those weights, it would only be a 3-pound step up to fight at super flyweight. I think in and around those divisions, yeah, there's some huge names. I mean, like,
well, you're not getting away without answering that. Where are you seeing it going with Edwards Chocolatito? How are you? Nail your colours to the mast, please, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for that one. Throwing me under the bus there, Elliot. I think it all depends on what Chocolatito has left. I think we'll see a lot more in his trilogy with Estrada. I think Chocolatito definitely won the second fight. Arguably won there's an argument that Gonzalez has won both of those fights against Estrada. Depends. I hope he hasn't got old overnight. If he has, Sonny Edwards, I think I could see beating him. But as you said, he doesn't have an equalizer, Sonny Edwards. He doesn't have that punch. And we have seen him on the deck before. I know it was at a lower level, down at British level, and he might have been taking his opponents lightly. But, I think if Gonzalez landed on Sonny Edwards, I think he'd beat him. So I would still have to favour Chocolatito at this time. But say in a month or two's time when he's fought Estrada for the third time, if he has aged overnight and looks a shell of himself, then I would probably favour Sonny Edwards.
Yeah, no, I think I actually would go along with that and agree with that, and I think that's some insight there for you, Paul, which is why you're paid more than I am to do these. So thank you very much for that. And we're going back to you, I believe, aren't we? Now we're going back to you for this is under the radar, I believe. Is it under the radar now?
It is indeed under the radar, and this is really an under the radar fight because everyone knows of Nick Ball now, who since he beat Isaac Lowe on the Fury White undercard. Just thought I'd have to mention Fury White because I know your good old friend Dylan got knocked out in that card. So yeah, Nick Ball put in a brilliant performance that night, and since then it's kind of become one of Frank Warren's up and coming stars, I suppose.
Mm.
Down at featherweight, he's defending his WBC silver title, which if you give that any value, then so be it. But yeah, he's fighting a guy called Rafael Pedroza, and you just think, you see the name and people have never really heard of him. Then you go and look at his record, and you realize this is a live opponent. They're both undefeated. I'll give a quick rundown of the tail of the tape. Ball 16-0 with 9 knockouts. Pedroza is 13-0 with 11 knockouts. So big puncher. Pedroza's only 26, Ball 25. Both clearly are big punchers. If we're saying Nick Ball's like a wee pit bull, he's quite small for the division. He's only 5'5". But see the way he put those manners on Isaac Lowe, and he just seems to have a relentless engine as well. He seems like he's like a wee Duracell bunny. He doesn't get tired at all. But this is an interesting fight because someone's going to get knocked out, even though it is down at featherweight. Let's be honest. As I said, Pedroza, is from Panama. He's Orthodox. He went the distance last time out, but he was fighting a fellow undefeated fighter called Sosa. So yeah, I'm interested in this fight. It's definitely gone under the radar, although it is a main event fight. I think a lot of people will be turning on BT Sport on Friday night, going, "Oh, I didn't know this was on. Brilliant! I remember him from the Fury undercard. I'm going to watch this." Both clearly huge punchers. So yeah, my question to you, Elliot, is: how long do you see this going? Because let's be honest, someone is getting knocked out. And do you think Pedroza is a live opponent for Ball, or is it a somewhat padded record?
No, I think thank you very much for that breakdown. Actually, it was very, very interesting. Actually, brought some insight to it of things I wasn't previously aware about. And also, I've gone on the record before in these meetings saying that actually before the Isaac Lowe fight, I didn't really have a clue who Nick Ball was. Frankly, I kind of heard a bit about him, but I'd never watched him fight, for example. And I was expecting essentially a low UD in that event. Frankly, was how I was seeing it. And then obviously saw what happened. It's like, okay, I had to pay attention to this. Did not expect that to happen. And like you said, like the rise actually of Nick Ball has actually been unexpected for me, but also like you said, one of those rising star moments. Seems to have really ratcheted up. When you think of some people, who essentially sit down in the division and essentially fight kind of journeyman fighters for a long time before they even step up. Like you said, Nick Ball, this is coming into this is 17th fight. But it seems like it's all just over the last sort of since that Low victory. It's just like, we're going now, sort of thing. So, in answer to your question, do I think they'll obviously, this isn't going the distance, frankly. Is what I'm thinking. And I was actually a bit concerned when I was looking at it, going, okay, so we're fighting over in York Hall, so probably, is it going to sort of favour Nick Ball in that respect? But then, like you were saying, I was looking at Draza's record and seeing that guy beat out Sosa, last time 30-0 undefeated. You're sitting there going, actually, like that's a kind of red flag for me as well. Well, I'm sitting there going, okay, fine, he stepped into this sort of opponent, this sort of level before, or it's an undefeated fighter before, and has prevailed. That was a UD win as well, so he's shown that he's got conditioning necessary to go the distance. But even looking through some of his other fights, tends to be a sort of middle or early sort of KO artist as well. So I actually think, could they cancel each other out and could it go the distance? I don't think it will. I just don't see that from Nick Ball. But I do think it will be sort of mid-round actually when it does eventually end. I'm obviously still going to back Nick Ball just from what I've seen. I haven't seen anything about Pedroza necessarily, so I'm coming at it really from a kind of research perspective as opposed to kind of sitting ringside and going, here's my boy. So I'm looking at it, so I'm thinking it's going to be Nick Ball stoppage. If that's put, you come at me now with some ESBR funds siphoned off the top, a pot of money, and said you get down to Ladbrokes or other betting shops are available, to put this on. Who you go with? I'm going to go Nick Ball stoppage, and I'd go somewhere sort of 6 to 8. I think actually is what I'm fancying. Yeah,
no, I think I have to agree with you again. One of these weeks we're going to just have to get 3 fights that we completely disagree on because it's getting boring now agreeing with each other every week. I think a mid-round stoppage for Nick Ball is probably quite likely. And you know what? I'm really excited to see what happens to Nick Ball in 2023. I think a world title shot is most definitely on the horizon. And see the confidence he speaks with as well. Funny you mentioned that you didn't know really much about him before the Isaac Lowe fight. I had interviewed him 2 or 3 times before that.
Yeah.
Since he was still fighting on the small hall shows in Liverpool. And then when you interview a fighter, you kind of feel like you have a connection towards them and want you back them even in a fight if they were the big underdog. You think, oh no, he can do it. And I remember he was 5-1 or something by knockout, and I was like, yep, get on that. Honestly, whatever.
So you would tell this one to get on it. And everyone was going, Paul, now calm down, please. And then obviously, when it comes to it, it's like, right, Paul is now the new prediction guru over ASPR. Let me ask you something. I've got a question for you now because I've seen this. I saw this tweeted actually last. Nick Ball tweeted this, I think, recently, or it was in some interview. I saw it snipped on social somewhere. He said essentially he comes through this. Say he comes through this fine, no injuries, whatever. Comes through victorious on the weekend. Nick Ball versus Kiko Martinez. Kiko's age, experience, where he is now. Do you favour Nick Ball in that?
Yeah, I'll go out on a limb and say I think Nick Ball would stop Kiko Martinez, and I'll go even one further, and I think Nick Ball next year could beat someone like Josh Warrington, to be honest. I think he could beat him. I think he'd give Lee Wood nightmares as well. Could you? Oh, no, I know we don't want to run on, but just quickly, I haven't even thought about it, but could you imagine Nick Ball against Lara? The two punchers, that would be insane.
That wouldn't go 12 rounds.
No, that would be insane. That would be, yeah, we're going to sit down for 5 minutes here and someone is going to get starched. But yeah, no, I think 2023 you could see a world title shot for Nick Ball. I remember he's spoken with such confidence before, even before he'd had that Isaac Lowe fight. He said to me, he was like, yeah, I'm world level and I know I'm world level. Now it's just a matter of showing people. And, he could be right already. And he's only 25, so he's still got a big future ahead of him. But yeah, that fight this weekend against Pedroza is definitely flown under the radar and one I'm looking forward to.
No, I agree with you. I think, yeah, massive. Could be a massive 2023 for Nick Ball, to be perfectly honest. He seems to have lit a fire under him, essentially, when it comes to promotion as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens to them next year. But yeah, thank you very much, Paul. I'm now going to hand back to you actually again to, you brought us in. You can take us out, please. Yeah, we'd like to say, send some nice well wishes to our viewers, and please, Paul, thank you.
Yes, as we said, thanks very much, Elliott. Yeah, they're the three fights that we've many looked at there. Denzel Bentley fighting for a world title, Nick Ball fighting there as well, and Sonny Edwards as well. So 2 Friday fights and a Saturday fight. Of course, as I mentioned at the start, there is another show headlined by Natasha Jonas, obviously Dalton Smith on that as well as Tyler Denny and Bradley Ray, which is a great fight for the English title. So yeah, there's some really good boxing action this weekend. Definitely don't miss out. You sit in, grab a few beers, order a pizza, and yeah, you got from Friday and Saturday night action. So yeah, definitely tune into that. I'm sure we'll have all of our other content. We'll have some betting shows, hopefully some interviews with some of the fighters as well if we can. But yeah, well, thanks once again for watching our weekly preview, and Elliott, all the best. I'll see you again next week.
All the best. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching, and thank you very much, Paul, for shepherding us through that with such dexterity and humour. Thank you.